The night we summoned the unknown still haunts my every thought. It started as a dare amongst friends, a foolish game we played in the dimly lit attic of an abandoned house. The air was thick with anticipation as we placed our fingers on the planchette, our laughter masking the unease simmering beneath. Questions began innocently enough. We sought answers from the spirit world, giggling nervously at the letters, spelling out cryptic responses. But as the session wore on, the atmosphere shifted. The planchette moved with an eerie intensity, spelling out words that sent a chill down our spines. I felt a cold draft encircle us, though the windows were sealed shut. Whispers, barely audible at first, crescendoed into anguished cries. Panic seized me as the room plunged into darkness, the lone candle extinguished by an unseen force. My heart raced, adrenaline flooding my veins. In the blackness, a presence loomed. I could sense its malevolence, a force beyond comprehension. A friend's agonized scream pierced the silence, followed by a sickening crunch. Frantic, I groped for an escape, but invisible hands seemed to pull me back, holding me captive in the abyss. The others cried out in terror, their voices drowned by the cacophony of unearthly moans. Shadows danced maniacally, contorting into grotesque shapes that clawed at my sanity. The stench of decay filled the air, suffocating and nauseating. Time lost meaning in that cursed place, minutes stretching into eternity. I pleaded for mercy, for release from this nightmare, but the darkness only thickened, suffusing every pore of my being. Suddenly, a blinding light pierced through the abyss. Gasping for air, I found myself sprawled on the attic floor, my friends huddled around me, eyes wide with horror. One was missing, a vacant space among us, a grim testament to the malevolent force we had foolishly summoned. I stumbled out of that accursed house, haunted by the chilling memory of that night. The Ouija board lay forgotten, a sinister relic of an ill-fated game that unleashed unimaginable terror. To this day, I carry the weight of that horror, a constant reminder of the dangers that lurk in the unknown. I remember that night vividly, the night I dared to play with forces beyond my comprehension. The air was thick with anticipation as my friends and I gathered around the antique Ouija board, its weathered wood carrying an eerie energy. We laughed nervously, dismissing the warnings we'd heard about summoning entities from the other side. The planchette glided under our fingertips, moving with an otherworldly energy. At first, it seemed harmless, answering mundane questions with cryptic messages. But then, the atmosphere shifted. The room grew colder, the air heavy with an unspoken dread. The planchette moved faster, spelling out words with an urgency that sent shivers down our spines. "Who are we speaking to?" I dared to ask, my voice barely a whisper. The planchette spelled a name unfamiliar to use, a name lost to time, but resonating with a malevolent presence. Panic threaded through use, but curiosity kept us rooted in place, unable to break the connection we had foolishly initiated. With each question, the entity grew more agitated, its responses turning sinister. It knew things about us, things it shouldn't have known. A chill settled deep within me as the board revealed secrets we'd never shared aloud. Fear gripped us in its icy hold, trapping us in a game we no longer controlled. As the night wore on, darkness crept into the room despite the blazing lights. Shadows danced on the walls, contorting into grotesque shapes that seemed to reach for use. A feeling of suffocation consumed the air, and an overwhelming sense of despair filled the room. One by one, my friends began to experience inexplicable pain. They clutched their heads, screaming in agony, as if their very souls were being torn apart. I tried to end the session, to bid farewell to whatever malevolent force we had unleashed, but the planchette refused to move to goodbye. I felt a presence behind me, a cold breath on the back of my neck. The words formed on the board, chilling me to the core. "You've invited me in, now I'll never leave." In a desperate frenzy, I flipped the board, breaking the connection. But it was too late. That night lingered in our lives, a haunting reminder of the dangers lurking beyond our understanding. My friends were never the same, haunted by visions and nightmares that refused to relent. And I carry the weight of that night, forever haunted by the darkness we foolishly welcomed into our midst. I can't shake the memory of that fateful night. We were a group of curious teenagers dabbling in the occult. The Ouija board lay before us, its ancient letters and numbers promising a connection to the unknown. At first, it was mere play, our fingers lightly touching the planchette, giggling nervously at the slow movements spelling out innocuous words. But as the night deepened, a strange energy enveloped us. The planchette moved with a purpose of its own, darting across the board with an unsettling speed. The atmosphere grew tense, a chill settled in the air, and whispers seemed to echo from the walls. We asked simple questions, seeking entertainment, but the answers turned sinister. The board claimed to speak for a spirit claiming to be a deceased young girl. We dismissed it as a prank, laughing off the ominous warnings. But then, inexplicable things began to happen. Objects moved on their own, shadows danced in the corners, and an unshakable feeling of being watched lingered. One of us, Ava, started sobbing uncontrollably, claiming to feel a presence enveloping her. The planchette moved wildly, spelling out chilling messages directed at her. We tried to end the session, but the planchette refused to glide to goodbye. Suddenly, Ava went silent, her eyes wide with terror. She pointed at the far corner of the room, stammering about a figure standing there. None of us saw anything, but the room's temperature plummeted and a sense of dread settled in our bones. In a panic, we forced the planchette to goodbye and packed away the board. But the unease lingered. Ava became withdrawn, plagued by nightmares and a constant fear of being watched. Weeks passed, and strange occurrences followed us. Whispered voices echoed in empty rooms, objects moved on their own, and the feeling of being watched never dissipated. And then, one night, Ava vanished without a trace. The police found no leads, no evidence. But I know the truth. That night, we invited something malevolent into our lives, and it took Ava. I can't help but feel responsible, haunted by the belief that the Ouija board had unleashed a darkness that claimed her.